Welcome to Be Provided Conservation Radio, sharing stories and information about the environment, wildlife, and the people who are dedicating their lives to protect the world for future generations. These inspirational stories will take you from the Santa Cruz Mountains to remote areas of Africa.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Be Provided Conservation Radio. I'm Marcia Civic, your host today. Today's program is part 1 of 2 with Ashleigh Lutz-Nelson, the Assistant Curator for Carnivores at the San Francisco Zoo. We pre-recorded this interview on Earth Day. It was on location at the zoo, and it was a wonderful sunny day to celebrate the Earth. Ashleigh and I spoke for over an hour, so I wanted to break up the episodes into nice bite-sized pieces. Part 1, which you'll hear today, is a discussion about how Ashleigh became involved with carnivores and how she knew her passion at a young age. We also discuss her various projects at Busch Gardens, the Realm of the Tiger project, her role at the zoo, and the beginning of the snow leopard discussion, which we will continue in part 2. A little cliffhanger there for you. I wanted to give a special thank you to Patricia Dennis for being the photographer of this event. Her photos and videos will be available on the website at www.beprovided.com. And to Josanne Vereen for support and encouragement throughout the day at the zoo. So I thank you all for celebrating the day with me. So welcome back, everybody, to Be Provided Conservation Radio, and enjoy the show.
Thank you, Marcia. Welcome.
Yeah,
yes, happy to have you here today.
Yeah, happy Earth Day.
Yeah, you too. We're excited. It's such an honor, to be hosting you here on Earth Days of all days.
Thank you.
It's very appropriate.
Yeah, exactly. How did you get involved with working with carnivores?
So I grew up in Florida.
Okay.
My parents both worked with animals. My mom grew up on a farm, and my dad was a small animal veterinarian. So I grew up in the veterinary practice in Florida, helping out with surgery and animal care since I could walk.
Wow.
Pretty much. And while I loved working with all of the animals, and we did a little bit of wildlife rehabilitation on the side, but mostly with domestics.
Yeah.
And at the shelter, he was also the veterinarian at the SPCA of Tampa Bay. So I developed a pretty strong affinity toward cats and a pretty strong connection from the start.
Oh, nice.
So I just always seemed to get them, and they got me. And so I always thought I would be a veterinarian, just like my dad, and was heading in that track. I went to University of Florida for undergraduate, and it was zoology, pre-veterinary major. And I really enjoyed it. So in my junior year, I decided to pursue a little bit more in wildlife, because I'd always been really drawn to wildlife and the cats of the kingdom and exploring that. So I actually volunteered with the veterinary staff at Zoo Tampa, which is in, it was called Lowry Park Zoo at the time. It was in Tampa, so near my hometown. And I got to work, working with all different species in the veterinary hospital and helping out with immobilizations and helping out with wildlife rehab. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the animal behavior side of it as well. So when I graduated, I said, okay, well, I'm going to be a keeper for a year. I'm going to do this.
You just decided.
Yeah, I'm going to be a keeper for a year, and then I'm going to apply to vet school. I'm going to go to vet school, and that's going to be it.
Yeah.
Being a wildlife veterinarian or zoo veterinarian is very competitive. They have to be the best doctors in the entire world, because they're caring for all the different taxa species.
Yeah. And it's not just one cat or dog and
it can be very competitive, but I was very interested in that. So I was still pursuing that track. And so, I decided to be a keeper for a year, and I got a job at Busch Gardens. And I'd grown up, near the theme parks my whole life. So growing up going to Disney, going to Busch Gardens and Lowry Park Zoo. It was just right there by the theme parks. So I always really enjoyed the adventure and exhilaration of the parks, combined with the animal education experience. So I got the job at Busch Gardens, and I quickly got recruited to working with the carnivores.
Yay! You're like,
and it was perfect. And so I fell in love with it, and I actually, after the first year, I decided to apply to vet school still. I applied to 11 schools, interviewed at 3. Wow. And just decided actually, that I had a little bit different path and decided not to go. Yeah. I'd also met my now husband at that time as well. So my heart was in Tampa and decided to stay. So after that, I had an enormous amount of opportunity through Busch Gardens. I worked with apes as well. I had the opportunity to open a new area called Jungala, which opened in 2008. And we went from having 5 tigers to 14 tigers. And so expanded our tiger program, and that was my focus. Although I got to work with the orangutans and gibbons and otters and flying foxes that were also part of that amazing area. It was this huge, it was the park's most adventurous capital animal area to date. So it was just amazingly interactive and just gorgeous. We had a lot of resources. So it was really beautiful, and I learned a lot. So just working, in that area, really, I, started learning more about conservation, about, the natural history of my species, and the animals, they were my family, and I became very inspired to take a bigger role in conservation. So I found a program in London at the Royal Veterinary College and Zoological Society of London. It allowed me to, go back to graduate school, but focus on conservation and really connecting the worlds between the ex situ, the zoo side of it, and the in situ, the field side of it. And London was just such a big hub. I mean, they really, being one of the first zoos, they actually were the first zoo to give their animals a purpose, like through behavioral research and applied research that was helping the animals in the wild. And they also really started field conservation. They instituted zoology there. They were the first to go in the field and build capacity and teach people how to take care of their wildlife. Yeah. They started community conservation, essentially.
Oh, that's great.
So I learned a lot. Yeah. And then I came back to Busch Gardens and had an opportunity to help start the cheetah area. So we built an area called Cheetah Run, and it was tied in with a roller coaster cheetah hunt that actually simulated cheetah hunting. So people could see the cheetahs, and we did the lure runs. So the cats got to run every day.
Oh, that's great.
We did, I raised an ambassador cheetah, Kasi, with a puppy, Matani, who was a rescue from the shelter. Okay. And we traveled all over the country to California and to New York to go on the Today Show. And they were amazing ambassadors. And I worked with them for a few years before heading back to tigers and be part of the Malayan tiger breeding program. So, and then from there, I headed out here. So, as my, from there, I started getting involved in the Felid Taxon Advisory Group, which is at, through the Association of Zoos and Aquaria, and so making decisions for cats, research, all the research, the management, the conservation, all of that for North America. And
that's a big responsibility.
Yeah. And I became the Palace's Cat Species Survival Plan Coordinator. And then, so helped out with the first tigers born at the zoo in 50 years.
Wow, the zoo here?
No, it's the Busch Gardens.
Busch Gardens.
Yeah, the Malayan tigers that were born there that were part of the wildlife docs programs.
Oh, that's great.
So sorry, I was kind of long-winded, but
no. I mean, and you're young, and you filled a lot in your life in this time. I'm very impressed.
Always had thank you. I've always had a lot of energy. You know, my mom likes to tell the story that in addition to me trying to bring my cats with me wherever I went, the other side of it was, I guess, when I first stood up, I took off running instead of walking. And she always talks about this because my mom is very put together, unlike me, but she wears, she had like pencil skirts, and, she said she had to put a slit in all of her skirts and wear tennis shoes because I just took off running. She's like, and you just haven't stopped since, which I always joke it'd be, if I were a runner, it would be a really good story. But I feel like I have this really, I guess it's passion, I guess it's like this fire, and it keeps evolving and changing, but the heart of it has always been to help animals. And I've enjoyed working with every species. It's not just the cats.
I can imagine.
I do. And I'm specialized with the carnivores, but I've enjoyed every experience with the rhinos and the gorillas and meerkats. And so it's been, all of it's just been a dream, and it's been really, I feel very lucky. Yeah.
So when did you get to the San Francisco Zoo area? So coming back here.
So picking up, so after the tigers, the cubs that were born, they got through their first year. And I was working with Ruaha Carnivore Project. I don't know if you know Dr. Amy Dickman.
Not personally, but I know of her.
So we were, that was my project that I was in charge of being the liaison for. So I had gone to visit her in Africa, and that was my first time to Africa. And
they're in Tanzania, right?
Southern Tanzania. And the most beautiful landscape that no one's ever heard of, and called Ruaha Landscape, and their project is phenomenal. And I got to go stay, and I went and spent a little time with her, and I was out in the field helping camera trap, and it was really hard work, and I was absolutely in heaven, and got to spend time with the people in the village and with movie night and connect with the understand how their incentives program works. So they really incentivize the people living near the wildlife there, gives them power of determining, of doing the monitoring themselves. It empowers them to take care of their wildlife and incentivize
they're living right there. So
it was amazing. And then I visited my friend Dr. Lydia Tiller, who I met in grad school, started her PhD in elephant conflict working in the Mara. So I visited them as well. And so as it turns out, there I was in Africa under the amazing southern sky with all the stars that was more beautiful than I could have ever imagined. And I was thinking about tigers. And I shouldn't tell that story, but I was, and my heart, my first loves, we called them the Fab Five, the original 5 tigers that I worked with. I mean, they stole my heart.
Oh yeah.
And I was always thinking about, all the animals have been just such individuals, and I love them all. And
are those the closest that you feel that tug at your heartstrings?
I had such a close, I was joking, I was with them where I was with my husband. So I just developed an extremely close relationship with them. When you don't speak the same language, you do develop this communication through training. And but it's funny, I'll never forget when I went back to visit from grad school. It had been like 8 months and I'd been away, and I went home just to kind of check in. I'd been traveling, and it was in school, so I was very busy in the degree, but I was trying to travel as much as possible my 1 year abroad. And I decided to go home because I just needed to kind of check in and see how they were doing. I'll never forget, I was like standing out on this bridge looking at Zara and Sohan, 2 of our Bengal tigers, and they were sleeping. And so my friend Jody that was with me, who was another fellow keeper, she said something, and it made me laugh, and I started cracking up laughing, and the cats just like popped up.
They recognized,
and after 8 months, they just ran down and started talking to me and calling. And so I just, it's just been, it's such a big connection, with them. So I was thinking about them, and so it was Amy Dickman who said, well, actually, I've got a really good contact, Dr. Joe Smith, who works for Panthera, who also did the same degree as I did. Oh, okay. And so she connected me with him, and also Dr. Fred Kuntz at Woodland Park Zoo. Okay. And they were helping a project in Malaysia for tigers, the Malaysian Conservation Alliance for tigers. Yay. And so long story short, I connected with them, and we started a citizen scientist project for people to go work in Malaysia to help tigers.
Oh, nice. Like a working
conservation program. Okay. Yeah, it's called Citizen Action for Tigers. So we started a program, and they were already doing the Citizen Action for Tigers program, which recruited anybody to come out and help patrol on the weekends when there are less rangers, and picking up snares, changing out camera traps. But it's really the only project like it in the world where citizen scientists can help a cat, any felid species, like directly by participating in the conservation work.
Right.
So we took it a step further, and they developed this Realm of the Tiger program, which was a more extensive field program where you could spend time with also the indigenous Batak Orang Asli, the tribe there, and they're helping like replant the corridor. And so you spend you spend a night in the jungle. You play in the river with the kids. You learn how they live, and you get to change out camera traps. And it's dense jungle, so it's not like in Africa where you're like on safari and it's pretty easy to see animals. Here, there's signs of animals everywhere. You see, you hear the siamangs, you see the elephant dung, and then it's so cool because when you change out the camera traps, you're like, there's an elephant right there where I was, or there's a marbled cat or a sun bear or clouded leopard. So it's incredibly special place. It's the oldest rainforest in the whole world. Wow. It's in Taman Negara in Malaysia. So
never been there.
So she connected me with them, and we took a group out in 2016 of AZA tiger care professionals, and that's a project that I've brought here and helped with. So we moved out in 2015, Cinco de Mayo, coming up on my 4th year anniversary out here.
Yeah. Is your husband in wildlife, by the way? He's not, but
he is by default with you, but yeah.
He is very acutely, he's amazing. Yeah, he really is. And he's actually a big steward of the ocean. He's an ocean conservationist. So he is a very big supporter of the ocean and ocean conservation. Yeah. So we always kind of joke, our nickname together is like Tiger Shark. We kind of tag team things, but he's very special, and he acutely understands all of the challenges and triumphs of our field. Because it can be very, compassion fatigue, really happens in our field. And,
I wanted to talk to you about that too. It's got to be hard. Yeah.
The privilege and to get to know these animals so closely. And it's also very difficult when we lose them. So there are a lot of challenges, but the rewards by far outweigh the challenges. And it's, you're never going to be rich in this field, but you're rich in so many other ways. Right. It's very rewarding.
I think that's great. So you came out in 2015 to San Francisco, and were you right with the zoo at that point? Did you come up with the zoo?
Yeah, so I moved out for the position. We were looking at relocating west, but with the right opportunity. And so we found this opportunity for me here at the zoo. And what drew me about it is our zoo we're 90 years old this year.
Oh, wow.
So much history.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have a really neat mix of rescued, rehabilitated native carnivores, as well as being involved in the conservation breeding programs for threatened and endangered species. So
I wanted to talk to you about that too.
So we have 13 wonderful species of carnivores here at the zoo. And as I mentioned, some rescued, some part of an active recovery program, like the Mexican gray wolves, our Alaskan black bears, and our grizzly bears are rescues. Our sea lion is a blind rescued animal from Marine Mammal Center. And then we have our conservation breeding programs like snow leopard, Amur tiger, Sumatran tiger, African lion, fishing cat. And we also have Fusa and bobcat, otter, North American river otter.
Oh,
and I think did I say wolverine already?
No, but that's good. That's good.
Yeah, so it's a really neat mix.
So we just learned Fusa. Yeah,
the Fusa, the Madagascar, the Malagasy Fusa. Yeah. And so we have a big focus on Madagascar at our zoo, and we're going to be expanding that area, including the Fusa. Yeah. And we have also a really big focus on snow leopards. So I'll have to tell you about our cool partnership with Snow Leopard Conservancy when we get to it.
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah, because I've talked to Rodney. We interviewed a little while ago too, Rodney Jackson.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and he's got a great thing going, him and Darla, so good.
They are extraordinary.
Yeah, well, we can kind of go into that. There's no set schedule or talk, but I just, I do want to hear more about like the conservation efforts of the zoo and the program, but also as we go forward to, you mentioned some of the challenges of your job and successes, and if you had any stories on those, we can talk about too.
I think when you mention that, they just go hand in hand. Yeah. The challenges are the successes.
Yeah, like you mentioned, watching the compassion fatigue. And,
I mean, being part of the species survival programs, which are the conservation cooperative breeding programs between accredited AZA zoos, and globally too. Some of the programs for the endangered species are managed globally, like the Sumatran tiger program is not sustainable on its own here in North America, so we work with the other regions so that there's genetic flow. Okay. Our gold standard is to have programs, zoo or ex situ conservation breeding programs that are sustainable at 90% genetic diversity or higher. Okay. For over 100 years. Oh. And so
what does that mean for?
Yeah, so when genetic diversity decreases below 90%, we found that leads to more neonatal mortality, risk of disease, other issues. So you want to keep it, just like for people too, you want to keep that genetic diversity as high as possible. And we look at, our big focus is sustainability. We are supplementing the efforts and complementing the efforts of what the conservationists are doing in the field. So we work directly with IUCN as part of that global one plan approach to link the ex situ with the in situ, because it really takes everybody plays a different role. Right. And just like being able to share this information, we all have a strength and something to offer. So I always tell people that are trying to get involved, I was like, it's always, that we all have our unique contributions that we can help,
help animals and help communities. And it's alike, right? It's, you know, to help animals, you have to help the communities and help them thrive. It's all about sustainability. And so
definitely.
With the breeding programs, we have over 80 different breeding programs here at the SF Zoo.
80?
Yeah, 80 different conservation breeding programs. And they range in purpose from, you know, insurance populations. So in case they go extinct in the wild, which for some of these species, we are really on the brink. And we support field conservation efforts financially when we can. But we also have, you know, these breeding programs. But some of them, we've gotten to the point where if we can reintroduce and protect the species in those areas, you know, we all work together that's the main goal would be to work with them to preserve the habitats that are there and then have the conservation breeding program supplement that in whatever way is needed. So like for Mexican gray wolves, we are actually reintroducing animals.
Yeah, I didn't realize. Okay, so you can reintroduce.
Western pond turtles, we're reintroducing. And we actually see our red-legged frogs we're breeding and reintroducing.
Oh, okay.
And damselflies too. That's another native species.
Oh, so you have a program for damselflies.
We
That's
do.
great.
It's all
I didn't
important.
realize.
Every species is important and plays a role.
Yeah.
So
and even the gardens, like you said, you changed the name to gardens.
Yes,
here,
and now we have, you know, milkweed in the gardens for the monarchs to come in, and we definitely focus. We have an invertebrate zoo here, so we focus on education at all different levels. It's not just the mega fauna. We definitely have an appreciation of all the different species. So we definitely work, you know, with the people in the field. Yeah. But, you know, our focus is the individuals here at the zoo. We have you know, our responsibility is, you know, we have a whole wellness program here where every individual is considered an individual. And we work very hard to provide, you know, the very best wellness, not just animal welfare, but wellness for each of our animals here.
Make sure the quality of life is good.
Absolutely. You know, we have very high standards through AZA, but also beyond that, we started our own wellness department. So we have a VP of Animal Behavior and Wellness and Director of Behavioral Husbandry and Training and Director of Conservation. And then they help, you know, really drive all of these programs. And so it's not just about keeping animals, you know, it's really about offering animals opportunity to have natural behaviors and explore as they would and really thrive, you know, because when you have animals that are thriving, then, you know, that really translates to the guests here and they really connect and then
makes you want to help them.
Yeah, it really, you know, when you see an animal that you don't feel like is, you know, doing very well, it's not the right message, you know, it's not part of our mission, you know, it goes against our mission. So, but every animal here is an individual and we have a lot of programs in place to make sure that they have the very best, best care. So we do a lot of training as well, which is a lot of fun. We did a lot at Busch Gardens as well. So it actually allows them to participate in their own healthcare. So things like standing on a scale so we can make sure we're weighing and they're maintaining an appropriate weight or growing if they're a cub. Also, we do voluntary ultrasounds with our pregnant female large cats. So our snow leopard and tigress are trained on voluntary ultrasounds where they'll sit up on a bench and we're very safe here. We have the highest safety standards. So we always work from behind a barrier for our safety and their safety, but it allows us to participate or them to participate in their own healthcare. And just like with us, you know, learning is enriching. And so we do that. Also voluntary blood draw or voluntary vaccinations. We use the tail. The cats will actually let us touch their tail and we work up to it. We train it using approximations and build their confidence through positive reinforcement. And so it's all very positive and voluntary on their part. And it's the way that we are able to establish a relationship and build a relationship too. So it's just a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. Are you hands-on involved with the training as well?
I am.
So what is a curator exactly? Like an assistant curator? Can you explain that? Yeah.
Well, it's, you know,
I kind of have an idea.
One of my old curators were previous curators at Busch Gardens. Rob Uherty always says, you know, he's like, oh, people ask what my job is. He's like, I could give you like a one-page description, but I'd have to like give you a book to tell you what I really do. It always makes me laugh.
You do,
he said, you really wear so many different hats. I mean, some days, like this morning, I was a facilities manager. I helped, you know, coordinate facilities maintenance, in my area, coordinate all of the health, the veterinary management, of the animals. And it's so many different things, the education, the talks, the tours for.
Oh, so you'll give the talks and the tours for things going on. Yeah.
I am, being in this role is interesting, transitioning from being a keeper for 15 years to being an assistant curator. It is interesting because, I'm now, my 8 keepers, they're my responsibility. And I, they're the ones that keep me up late at night thinking about, but I want them to thrive. I want to, develop them so they have the same opportunities whatever opportunities are best for them that I had based on my curators at Busch Gardens that helped me and help lift me up and recognize what my strengths were and where I wanted to go and give me those development opportunities. So I want to provide the same things for them. And so I really enjoy the mentoring and leadership. Like I never woke up and was like, I want to be someone's boss. Like that never came out of my mouth.
No, that wouldn't come out of my mouth.
No, like I just wanted to help drive the field forward. And with that comes, you take it one step out of being a keeper, which is you miss all those in-between moments. And that's what I miss. I miss, when I'm like doing records and like looking over and seeing one of the cats like on their back, just like looking at me and being cute and rolling. And I miss all those in-between moments because now I'm like zipping between all the different 13 species and handling maintenance and coordinating and facilitating. And I enjoy all of it. But, there are things I do miss about being a keeper. But I really enjoy my role. And I think, from what I've talked to other people that have continued to move up, it's that trade-off, like now I have more flexibility to incorporate like the Felit Taxon Advisory Group stuff into my role. Before I did it all at night. So I have after work because I just didn't have time, and I didn't want to leave my crew hanging with the cleaning or anything. So, it's, I have more time to incorporate, I have more flexibility now to incorporate the conservation programs into my job. And
that's important too.
And now, with this new project that just got approved, I'll be able to, work on, I'm going to be the coordinator for this project.
And this is the snow leopard. Yeah. So let's talk about that and what's going on with the snow leopards.
So we've had a big, focus on our zoo. I'll have to remember the statistic again, but I think we've had over 30 snow leopards born here over the last 50 years. 30? Through the species survivor since the 1950s.
Awesome.
So it's been a really successful program here. And, it's fortunately the weather being very mild. It's, we're able to have tropical species as well as temperate species. And it's just a, lovely climate year round. So our snow leopards have been a big focus. And so we had a breeding pair together. We introduced them. They came in, they were born in Canadian AZA zoos, and they came in November of 2017.
What is AZA? Just so
AZA is the Association of Zoos and Aquaria.
Thank you.
So they're the ones that manage us nationally. They're a nonprofit that is our accreditation. So every 5 years we go through this rigorous accreditation. We're evaluated on education, our education programs, our conservation involvement, our animal care, our safety, all of our habitats, our financial stability, everything. So they're like the governing. So once you are accredited through AZA, you're evaluated every 5 years, but you are allowed to participate in the species survival programs because we're all at the same level.
Okay.
So that's kind of how it works. So basically you maintain your accreditation, and that, because these animals are priceless, they're completely invaluable. So there's no monetary gain or there's no money exchange. It's just for the good of the species.
Just keeping people,
and so you pay for the transports and everything to move animals around. But
I didn't mean to get you sidetracked on the snow
that's
leopard.
okay. So the snow leopards came in. They were recommended to come here. We had space for a breeding pair. And so fortunately, we got the recommendation for them to come in. We were really excited. They allowed this. They wanted us to work with us. And so they came here. Jimmy G and Dawa came here and at the end of 2017, and they were naive. They were young. They were only 2.
Oh, wow.
She was 2. He was 4. Okay. And so when we introduced them, they had never, it was their first time in a breeding situation. So we, once they got through their quarantine period and getting used to each other, neighboring near each other, we started doing physical introductions, which we always proceed very, very carefully.
Oh, yeah, because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and just read the animal's behavior. Always let them determine the next steps, always ended on a positive, all these things we've learned over the years that are, through working with animals, the best. So, so we introduced them, and it was really cool watching them, all the hormones kind of kick in for the first time, and just figuring out how to, I always laugh. It makes me think of that movie, The Blue Lagoon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Where they're trying to figure
They
out,
weren't really sure what was going on,
Yeah.
but the hormones and the instinct kind of took over. And so it was an amazing process, because the other animals that I'd been part of the breeding program were also naive, but they were a lot older. Mm-hmm. So it was just, it's such a privilege to work with them and learn their behavior and watch them, lead them through that process. Yeah. And it was amazing because the first time that they bred over the course of, so they're seasonal breeders, snow leopards. So they came into season. We'd started putting them together to get used to each other in February, and they were getting used to being in the same space. And then when March kicked in, the beginning of March, the hormones started kicking in. And then they were very awkward, but eventually started figuring it out. And then lo and behold, 3 weeks later, she she didn't cycle again. Oh. And she was pregnant the very first time they bred. Amazing. It was incredible. And, we had supervised those, the breeding, and they'd gone on like chaperone dates at first until we were more comfortable leaving them together overnight, which gave them more opportunity, because cats are induced, not all felid species, but snow leopards anyway are induced ovulators. So that means that they have to, that the breeding actually induces the ovulation, whereas like for us, it happens involuntary. Right. So anyway, we gave them as much opportunity as possible, and we had actually started training her on the ultrasound behavior. So at 30 days, she was ready for us to start using the gel and applying pressure, and there it was. There's a heartbeat. So 30 days is the earliest detection method. You can do X-ray as well, because it'll show you as they get bigger the skeletons. Okay. So every week for a few days a week, we did the ultrasounds just to make sure everything kept going in the right direction, and we were just very, very excited. And then all of a sudden there was a little second placenta, and then we were like, and then the skeletons, they look like little seahorses in there, and then you can start to see, and then we were comparing both of them, and then also measuring like fetal heart rate compared to dog and a cat, because no one has the standardized for snow leopards, so we were comparing it to fetal cat and dog heart rates, and everything looked good. So we started working with Snow Leopard Conservancy. They've been a long partner of ours here at the zoo. They're local here in Sonoma. And, back when Barb Palmer used to work here, there was lots of collaboration. I know she went out into the field to work with them. And so she introduced me to them when I got out here. Oh, and great. So we started, collaborating. And then Susan Jannon was the one that suggested that maybe we work together on a snow leopard book for Snow Leopard Conservancy. Oh yeah,
that's a great idea.
And so when they were working on putting a book together from photos that they've captured of snow leopards in the wild. Jack Wonderly had donated his time to, Susan helped fund that project to go out into the field. And so he went out and did this big expedition and took pictures of snow leopards in India. And then Susie Esterhaus, who's an amazing photographer as well, is donating her time and she focuses on the mother and cub bond. So when they got word through Susan, because Susan and I were friends, that our that we had snow leopards and we were breeding. And I said, okay, well, let's, I can't promise, we don't take anything for granted every day. We take it one day at a time.
We're not sure how this is going to turn out.
So we just started communicating. It's first time mom. We don't know if she's going to be we don't know what's going to happen. Sometimes these things can take a couple times. And so along the way, we were just all, going, every day and communicating. And then, what we do, I actually teach a course for the felid tag on what to expect when you're expecting.
Oh, you do?
So
you do that here?
It's actually at the conference every year. I teach, it's the felid husbandry course. So birds and curators come to the felid tag meetings where the SSP meetings are and learn. So we put together a birth planning course that I teach, and so we were planning, what to do, what happens if things go wrong, what to plan to set the mother up for success. We also
humans,
exactly. We did actually put, the best standard is to put cameras in so that we can monitor the behavior, and then when the cubs are born, we, just monitor nursing and keep mama happy as long as things are going well. So everything just kept going well. So we kept in contact with Snow Leopard Conservancy, and then they actually came out to visit Dawa, and it was really cute because she was really frisky because she's young herself. She's only 2 years. She was 3 right before the cubs were born. But Rodney was laughing because she was out there just bouncing around and playing, and she was doing like her crazy like snow leopard helicopter moves where she was just,
we saw that.
Yeah, just bounding around and everything. And so cool to see him smiling, and he's like, I've never seen that before. So it was really special.
Well, this concludes part 1 of our 2-part show with Ashleigh Lutz-Nelson. And thank you again for listening. And next week, we will be talking about the snow leopard cubs and what happens with them and the project going on with the Snow Leopard Conservancy, and also what gives Ashleigh hope to continue this work. So stay tuned for next week, and thank you again for listening.
Thank you for listening to Be Provided Conservation Radio. Links and resources to today's topic are in our show notes on iTunes. We appreciate your dedication and interest in protecting our natural world for future generations. If you like what you heard, please get involved by volunteering, donating, and sharing these podcasts with your friends. It also helps us to inform more people if you take a minute to leave a rating or review on iTunes. Have a great day. And thank you for listening to Be Provided Conservation Radio.